At this time, I would ask the Secretary to please call the roll.
Senator Rocky Adams. Here. Senator Alvarado. Senator Berg.
Here.
Representative Bentley. Here. Representative Herron. Here. Representative Mosier. Senator Meredith.
Here.
Representative Meade.
Here. And a quorum has been established. At this time, you should have had the minutes in your packet this morning, plus you should have got those previously as well. So with that, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes. Is there a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries and the minutes are approved. At this time, we'll move into the discussion and approval of the task force finding and recommendations. Everyone should have got a copy of the recommendations a couple of weeks ago, or not the recommendations, the findings a couple of weeks ago, and had a chance to look over those. It's basically just a briefing of what the information was that was given to us by each of those departments. So with that, we will entertain a motion for approval of the findings.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries and the findings are approved. Now, with the recommendations, what we will do is we will go one by one through these recommendations, and I will ask at the end of the reading of that recommendation if there are any comments. I will take the first finding, actually the first recommendation, I apologize. So again, as we go through these, the objective of this is to look at ways to streamline the cabinet, to help the cabinet become more efficient in any manner possible. And as we go through these, if you have any comments after I read those, I will call for those as well. So recommendation number 1, due to the size of the Cabinet for Health and Family Services and the scope of its jurisdiction, in order to ensure a thorough study of the organizational structure, operations, and administrations of the cabinet, and to allow providers, cabinet employees, and relevant stakeholders to testify on their experiences, it is recommended that the task force continue through the interim of 2023. Are there any comments?
Motion.
There's a motion to approve that recommendation. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Recommendation 1 is approved. Chairman Meredith.
Thank you, sir. Recommendation number 2, and let me preface this by saying I appreciate Secretary Freelander joining us again this morning and being an invaluable part of this task force throughout the past few months. And the information you have given to us has been invaluable, and we appreciate the spirit of cooperation that you've given to us and that you have displayed. And as we go through these recommendations, let me assure you again that this is not intent to reflect negatively on anyone. I think you've done a very commendable job, as have your people. Again, as Co-Chair Meade has said, we're looking at ways to try to improve efficiencies in operations and hopefully save some money for our Commonwealth, but also be more reactive and to the recipients that we serve. But again, appreciate you being here this morning. Second recommendation is the Department of Income Support administers the Child Support Enforcement Program and the Disability Determination Services Program. Due to the legal nature of the Child Support Enforcement Program, the program would be more effective and better served by removing it from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services and placing it within the Office of the Attorney General. Within the Office of Attorney General, the Child Support Enforcement Program may be privatized and contracted out, but the administration of the program should remain under the Office of the Attorney General. Due to the impact the determination of disability has on the workforce, it is recommended that disability determination services programs be moved to the Education and Labor Cabinet. With that, any comments? Not, is there a motion? I'm sorry, Senator Berg, didn't see you.
Thank you. Is this something that the cabinet supports, this move?
Are you posing that question to me or Secretary Freelander?
To whoever made the recommendations, because they should be aware of whether or not the cabinet's in favor, or Secretary Friedlander, either one.
I would welcome a response from Secretary Freelander if he's comfortable doing that, but I'll present my own as well.
I'll be real quick and save save me coming up each time, if that's all right. Absolutely appreciate the recommendation. Let me sit down.
Well, let me preface this, Secretary Freelander, don't mean to interrupt you, but Co-Chair Meade and I had talked before this meeting that once we go through this report and accept the recommendations, that we want to meet with you and talk about how we go forward with these particular recommendations and strategies.
Yeah, and I get to thank you all, and I do want to thank you all. This has been an opportunity to present a lot of information to you all. I think it makes complete sense to let others have comment too. I think that's a great thing to think about. So I applaud that. In terms of all the other recommendations, right? Movement, changes, all of that. I think that's ongoing discussions, and I think that's appropriate ongoing discussions. So I really, I'm not going to have an opinion one way or the other at this point until we have more discussions. And so I think that's really fair. I think this entire committee, chairs, the folks who are here, we talk all the time, and I think that we'll continue to do that. And I will pledge to do that in the spirit that we've been working with this committee, and we'll continue to do that. So that's where I am, and that's probably, so it'll save me from coming up for more. But that's the way I feel, and I again, the way that we have conducted and the way that you all have conducted these hearings, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. No other comments? Motion to approve? Motion by Co-Chair Meade, seconded by Senator Adams. All those in favor vote aye. Any opposition? All right. Thank you. Recommendation passes.
Recommendation number 3. The Office of Children and Special Health Care Needs provides comprehensive care, including providing medical services, therapy services, hearing loss services, and support services. Given the jurisdiction of the Department for Public Health, including the services currently offered, and the composition of the personnel within the Department for Public Health, including the statutory requirement that the commissioner of the department be a medical doctor, it is recommended that OCSHCN would be better served within the Department for Public Health. Is there any comments?
Motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second to approve recommendation number 3. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Recommendation number 3 is accepted.
Recommendation number 4, the Department of Family Resource Centers and Volunteer Services is comprised of Family Resource and Youth Services Center, Friskies, in Serve, Kentucky. KRS 194A.575 defines the purpose of Serve Kentucky, which is more consistent as a function of the Education Labor Cabinet, so it's recommended that Serve Kentucky be moved to Education Labor Cabinet. Our Friskies, Family Resource and Youth Services Centers, remains a key part of our Kentucky's educational system. It may be either 1, removed from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services and placed under Education and the Labor Cabinet, or 2, placed within the jurisdiction of a Department of Jurisdiction within the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, such as DCBS or DBHDID. Any comments? Representative Moser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question. Is this where the Commission on School Safety resides?
I don't know that we address that one specifically. I think that's part of that continued dialogue we're going to have as we prepare the legislation for this next session. But it's a good question. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree that, we need to continue these conversations. There's a lot to unpack here. But, yeah, I agree that this is a good idea, though.
Representative Herron, you have a comment?
Yes, I think that my comment or concern is I think that our educational system is already bogged down, and I think that the Friskies would, in my opinion, would continue to serve better within DCBS or somewhere within this cabinet. I just want to state that for the record.
And I appreciate that greatly. And I would probably counter with, well, I think the Cabinet for Health and Family Services is kind of bogged down as well. And we've seen that throughout the testimony. And I go back to the original creation of the Friskies, which came from CARA. and I see it as an educational function. And going back to accountability, their purpose is making sure that kids have the resource available to them so that we reduce the amount of delinquency and absence for school system. But I don't see that there's any real accountability, final accountability for those outcomes. And that's why this recommendation evolved in this manner. But there are no other comments, questions. Entertain a motion to approve recommendation number 4. Motion by Senator Adams. Is there a second? Second by Representative Mosier. All those in favor of recommendation 4 will vote aye. All opposed vote no. Any opposition? All right, thank you. The number 4, recommendation number 4 is adopted.
Recommendation number 5, the Office of the Ombudsman, Administrative Review, and the Office of the Inspector General be separated from the Office of the Secretary, and protocol should be developed to ensure independence of its operations in order to uphold public integrity and confidence. Are there any comments? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Recommendation 5 is approved.
Recommendation number 6, require the Department for Medicaid Services, DAIL, and DBHDID to identify and eliminate redundancies and barriers to administering 1915C Medicaid waiver programs and issue a report containing its findings, recommendations, and action plan to the Legislative Research Commission by December 1st, 2023.
Motion on this.
An enthusiastic motion by Senator Adams, second by Representative Mosier. All those in favor, write aye. Any opposition? Recommendation number 6 is adopted. Thank you.
Recommendation number 7, require the Office of Human Resource Management to work with the Personnel Cabinet to identify the systematic barriers and redundancies that are prohibiting an effective and timely hiring and onboarding process for prospective employees. Require the Cabinet to issue a report containing its findings, recommendations, and action plan for the Legislative Research Commission by December the 1st, 2023. Are there any comments?
Motion.
Motion and a second. Senator Berg, did you have comments?
Yes, thank you. My one question for the committee, we're talking about a full year from now when we have, horrendous hiring problems now. Is a year too long to wait for this report is my question.
Does anybody else have any comments? That I'm. This is, since it's been this way for a while, and it's going to be something that's going to be in depth to get the details on. I think that we could require lesser time, but I'm not sure that they'd give them significant time in each one of those to go through their processes and their programs to see if that's something they get a report back on. So we can talk to them and ask them if we can get it sooner. But I always like to, especially in legislation, I always like to give them a little bit longer timeline and then ask to get it sooner if we possibly can.
I appreciate your sentiment with regard to this, Senator Berg, and I would hope we could move it up, but I think given the nature of a state government and how slowly it moves, that probably this is a relatively short time frame, afraid to say.
Senator Adams.
Oh, I was just going to add, if I remember the testimony from DCBS, this is kind of in line with their timeline into the child protective services and child welfare systems too. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, it aligns with kind of the DCBS initiative as well on hiring.
Are there any further comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Recommendation 7 is approved.
Recommendation number 8, the state guardianship program with DAIL assists vulnerable adults, which can also be administered as an extension and function of adult protective services with the jurisdiction of DCBS. Any comments? Motion by Senator Adams to approve. Is there a second? second by Senator Byrd. All those in favor vote aye. Any opposition? All right, thank you. Last but certainly not least is given number 9, recommendation number 9, given the growth of the Medicaid program and increased demand for public assistance and social and human services in Kentucky, the task force acknowledges the need to reevaluate the committee structure of the General Assembly in order to adequately serve the needs of Kentuckians. And the comment I'd make with regard to this, with Representative Moser as chair of Health and Welfare and Senator Adams being past chair of Health and Welfare, the rest of us being intimately involved with those issues, we know it's become very difficult for the two committees that are impacted by this, Child Protective Services and Medicaid Oversight, that the responsibility of those committees have grown over the years. And since we don't have the authority to act on bills within those committee, it comes back to Health and Welfare, and with the very limited amount of time frame we have to work with within our legislative sessions, I think we may have reached a point that we need to restructure those committees to possibly be standing committees. But obviously, leadership will have to make the final determination on that. Any comments? If not, entertain a motion. Senator Adams, seconded by Representative Moser. All those in favor, vote aye. Any opposition? Motion, recommendation number 9 is passed.
I don't think it's necessary. Feature recommendation's been approved. Go ahead, Steve, with number 9. Oh, you did number 9. Okay, we're done. I was writing down. That concludes the recommendations. Are there any further comments? Senator Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just want to say I think this is a great exercise. I'm very passionate about the success of the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. They are really one of the direct lines of resources for those most vulnerable. And I think it's exciting that we are taking the time to look at the processes and see if we can improve them, because if we can improve the cabinet, then we improve how they treat the citizens of the Commonwealth. And so I've been really, I also want to give a shout out to Secretary Friedlander. He has been, he's always been so forthcoming and ready to help in bettering his cabinet, and that's saying something. I think you're a great leader over there, and I'm proud to have you, and I'm proud to work with you, and I'm also really proud of the co-chairs for the work that they've done. This is tedious work, and thank you for being so diligent in how you've pulled together, I think, some really good common sense recommendations for us to pursue.
Representative Moser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to echo the sentiments of Senator Adams and talk about the importance of really looking into this huge cabinet, and everything that we are talking about doing will come with points of intersection elsewhere. And I think it's really critical that we continue these conversations. I applaud the work of Secretary Friedlander. I know that you have a great depth of knowledge, lots of history in various parts of the cabinet, and so you really do understand the inner workings. We are looking to be supportive here, and we value your input. I know too that this is tedious work, and I appreciate the time that everyone has taken to really dig into these issues. I think that there are real opportunities for ongoing conversations, and I'm hoping that this will give us better insight into how we support this legislatively, and a lot of times there are ways that the government can get out of the way and let some of our private partners take on some of this. So, I know that we're talking about the cabinet, which is a government entity. So, with the powers that we have to kind of oversee this, I think this has been a good exercise. I just, I hope that we move cautiously and judiciously. So, thank you.
Senator Meredith.
Thank you. I'd like to thank our committee members for your commitment to this process as well, and as well as Co-Chair Representative Meade. And for me personally, this has been a tremendous learning experience. I've been in healthcare most of my adult life and learned some things that I had no concept of, and appreciate the time that the Cabinet has spent with us to educate us on these matters. But again, I want to thank the committee members. As we noted in our recommendations, this is going to be an ongoing process, and I think we can all be assured that nothing's ever cast in stone. But unless you try, unless you venture into new territory, you never go anywhere. But I echo the sentiments of Representative Moser that this gives us an opportunity, hopefully, to make the cabinet a better cabinet and be more receptive and more responsive to our constituents and our Medicaid recipients in particular. But I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our committee task force staff. You folks have done an incredible job, and including Eric Clark in that. You folks are really the ones that have moved this train along, and I think train's an appropriate analogy here, but appreciate your all's efforts, and I think we've had a successful task force. Thank you, sir.
Are there any further comments? And I will echo that. It has been a good experience to go through this, to see just how in-depth this cabinet is and how big of a beast it actually is. And Secretary, thank you for what you have done, for the testimony that you provided, for the working relationship that you've provided. Even on times that you and I have opposed each other on stuff, it's always been good to work with you, and we will continue that relationship. Appreciate that. I will just remind the folks on this committee and those that will be watching that these recommendations, these findings, will now be presented to the Legislative Research Commission and to the General Assembly. And the purpose of this task force was to receive testimony from each department, get that better understanding of their function administrations in order to make the policy recommendations that we're going to make. And those recommendations are going to be at the full discretion of the legislature. So I'll remind everyone again that whether the cabinet supports or opposes any recommendations, it's irrelevant, because we will have there will be ongoing policy discussions. We certainly will ask for their input, welcome that when we get to that policy discussions. However, the General Assembly will make those final decisions based upon what we believe is best for the people of this state. And just like any other piece of policy that we put out, once we put it out there and we get the public input, we'll see whether we're on the right track or whether we need to change directions and go another route. So thank you all again for being here. If there are no further comments or questions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.